So, as we get started today, we have, we've got a show. We got two news things. It was originally just one, and then at like the last minute, I was like, hey, you know what? I want to talk about this as well. Why not? Sure. And for WIBE, we got two books, one game, no food thing. I know the season finale of Fallout was this week. I haven't watched it. I watched the first episode of the season. I liked the first episode of the season. But I just have not gotten around to it. I've been really bad when it comes to Fallout. And I'll pick it up eventually. But yeah, I don't really have much this week. No TV, no movies. I'll get around to stuff. There should hopefully be more stuff to talk about next week. But this week just kind of happened, I don't know. I mean, we've been doing Animal Crossing. So, yeah. But before we do any of that, I do have one thing I do want to do, which is TCG Pocket. Why is that doing that? Okay, that's weird. It's making a noise every time I do that. I don't know why it would. So, we got the new set, Fantastical Parade. I have already opened a few of this set. If we come over here... collector card number? Maybe that? There we go. I've got 71 of the set. I've got a few things, but nothing special. We've got one Mega Evolution. And I got the Salamence. And I got the Umbreon. Which, hey, that's cool. But this is actually one of the bigger sets. Most of the smaller sets are like this one, right? They have around like 70 cards. This set, though, for only being one pack, has 155. That's almost double. That's a lot. So that does, worry me a little bit, but we should be fine. So we're going to open up probably 20 packs. I think that's normally what we do. I don't know how many hourglasses we have. Trust me, it's a lot. I've got a fair few hourglasses under my belt. I didn't really notice anything. Oh, look at that ladybug. It's a belly bot. Another Sandslash. Dewblade. I've seen this one a lot. That Dewblade. Drafty. I have not really seen much of this set. Like, I have not seen the... Not illustration rare, the animated. I don't remember what they're called. The new special card. I have not seen what it is. I know it's Gardevoir, but, like, what it actually looks like, I have no idea. Hey, there's Ogerpon. It's Tangy, the Ogerpon. That'd be a cool villager to find in Animal Crossing, Tangy. Alright, final pack magic. Sightseer, Grimer, Vulpix. God, no, just two Sightseers. I mean, we got a few, we got a bunch of new cards that I didn't have, that I did need. We got the Ogerpon, which I did need. But yeah, getting 3 Sightseers back to back, that ain't great. But it's helping us fill it out. There we go. We're up to 91. Let's open another 10. Oh, I can't... I'm looking on my... I can't see my hourglasses on my phone screen because the whole recorder thing is blocking it. Okay. Okay, I did hear something there at the end. So maybe we'll get lucky. Diantha. Seen her daughter. Bagon. Oh, look at that Litwick. Mr. Rhyme. Yeah, look at that Litwick. It doesn't on my end. I'll double check it here in a minute, though. No, we just started. Look at that Litwick. That, I love all the little bottles, the fireworks. Oh, that one's great. Tyrantrum. Oh, boy. That's actually cool. Oh, Cramorant. Oh, God Pack? God Pack? I doubt it. Nope, just a Pumpkaboo. Vanillish, Spinda, another Meloetta. Alright, final pack magic. Come on. Wick. Ice Pop. Scatterbug. Honedge. Oh, no, nothing. Where winds meet and I chose my... Where'd it go? So yeah, that also... I mean, we got a few rarer cards that time. But... we broke... I mean, we kind of broke 100. No, we barely broke 100. Alright, let's do... I've got the hourglasses. Let's just do one more set. I mean, how often do I do this? Minum. Okay, Boomer, with your physical cards. Whatever you say, Unk. Swallow, there we go. There's something about Berserker. Okay, there we go. Finally, we're getting some 3 stars. Ooh, Mousehold. Okay, there's something back here. Come on. Ah, it's just a Magby. It's just a Magby. Ooh, Stunfisk. I really like Galarian Stunfisk. God, I wish it was better. It's like it should have gotten an evolution or something. Oh, there's the Gardevoir. It needed something. It just doesn't hit. Zigzagoon. Alright, come on. Okay, there's something back here. No, just the... I guess I was just seeing the Berserker. Yeah, I mean, we got a few things, but... nothing... No Megas, no EX. We got 1 EX that whole time. It does, but I also don't want to collect physical cards. I'm not... Listen, I got back into Lego. I'm not making the mistake of getting back into physical cards. No, thank you. Plus, I don't have to spend money on this. I've never spent a dime on this game, and I never will. There's our level up. We got a bunch of different things. We got decks. Oh, we just straight up completed the Ogre Pond deck. Holy crap. Yeah, wow. Oh god, I saw the rare Blacephalon in the pic. Oh, the full, like, Blacephalon looks so nice. Toxtricity. There's a Mega Swampert in this one. Mega Mawile. I haven't seen shit from this deck, yeah. Yeah, I'm not getting lucky with any of the rare cards. We've got multiples of all the commons, but none of the rares. None of the EXs. We got the Meloetta thing, because I somehow keep pulling that. I don't think it's rare. Yeah, we just need Gardevoir. I don't know, this set's okay. I like some of the theming on some of the cards. I will brag that since last time we played, if we look at all the sets here. So one of my big struggles was the cards I was missing. I'm almost done completing some of these sets. Right, Secluded Spring. Who'd you hear that from? A Dwarf Heitler? Where did I see it? That's a joke from somebody. I don't remember where. Almost completed Secluded Spring. I've completed Eevee Grove, which I don't remember if I was missing anything from this one. I don't think I was missing anything from this one. I completed Extra Dimensional Crisis, which again I think I'd already done. I finally completed Shining Revelry. One of my biggest missing cards was this one, and I finally got it. Finally. I completed Triumphant Light somehow. Even though I was missing like 6 cards from this one, I got pretty lucky with some trades and was basically able to get all of them. And then Mystical Island, the second set. The only card I was missing was this one, and I finally got it. So yeah, I'm now making... I mean, of course, all the bigger sets I'm missing tons of stuff in. But for a lot of the smaller sets, nah, I've gone through and completed most of them. I just got really... After I fit... Because Crimson Blaze was super easy to finish. And after I did, everything else I just got really lucky on. Or I was able to get some good trades on. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so with that, we're gonna switch off that. Let's kill that. And then we're gonna boot up Pikmin. Yeah, I gotta figure out where we left off in Pikmin. Yeah, I don't know. I don't post on Instagram, like, at all. I don't even know if I still... I would assume Instagram doesn't shut down your Instagram through inactivity. Like, that very much feels like a Facebook thing. Of, like, Facebook will never shut down your account, even long after you're dead. Instagram is, you know, also Facebook, so I feel like they work the same way. Alright, let me boot up Pikmin, and we'll talk about Nintendo Direct and all that. Sports U feed. I think it's kind of weird that you follow a teacher on Instagram. Yeah, Facebook is Instagram for old people. I don't know. I couldn't imagine, like, following anybody. Any of my high school teachers on, like, any social media. Because we had Instagram and Twitter and Facebook back in the day. Well, you see their stuff. That's weird. At least, that kind of, for me, it feels like running into, like, a teacher when you're down at, like, Tesco. Like, that was also weird. Did that ever happen to me? Did I ever... I think I did. I think I ran into somebody... I don't know. Okay, maybe I just don't understand how Instagram works. Puts engineer. What's the Sports You feed? Is that like... What's... Maybe that's where I'm confused. What the heck is Sports You? Yeah, maybe that's my question. What is Sports You? Alright. It's a website basically like a bulletin board. Oh, okay, yeah, I have no idea. Alright, let's switch over to Pikmin. Yep, let's head back out into the Hero's Hide. I don't think we have much left to do in the Hero's Hideaway. We're pretty close to finishing it up. At least I think we are. I don't know, I guess we'll see. All right. Feels like I'm talking to a brick wall. Or a concrete wall. I mean, it is bricks. Yeah, no, Sports You, that's way past my time. Way past me. Okay, let me pull up my thing for the Nintendo Direct. How many pages of notes do I have on the Nintendo Direct? Let's see, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of notes. Can we get that from here? Ah, fuck, we're gonna have to go over there. You had a newspaper and a crossword puzzle in the back of the cereal box. Like... No? I know I'm a boomer, but I'm not that old. Lost some heat. A lot of places still do have smoke zones. I don't know, man. Okay, this is definitely a boomer take. Or maybe a millennial take. I thought we were so close to being done with smoking. I fucking hate smoking, man. Like, I get it. If it, like, with weed, like, weed is whatever. But, like, tobacco, fuck tobacco. I thought we were so close to being done with all that shit. And then vapes come around, and now everyone's just vaping. But kind of like smoking, nobody has any shame anymore. Like, at least we pushed smokers off into smoking areas and made it so fucking lame that only old people do it. But then, you know, vape sticks come in, and now everyone just has their little pens, and they just do it wherever the fuck they want. Vaping, it's the same thing at this point. Vaping and cigarettes are the same thing. I mean, sure, vaping doesn't smell as bad as cigarettes, but also, yeah, people just don't give a shit. and will just like puff that shit in your face for no reason. And like smokers are assholes, like I get it. But yeah. But vaping's just as bad. Like do whatever you want in your the privacy of your own home. But out in public, man, everybody just vapes and ugh. But that's my boomer take. I mean, vaping probably is worse just because of, like, well, actually, they're both pretty bad. I would say vaping is worse because of, like, the chemicals they put in it, but cigarettes also have an ungodly amount of chemicals in them as well. So, they're both pretty bad at the end of the day. I don't know. There's a part of me that, like, doesn't want to yuck anybody's yum. But also, I just don't want to fucking deal with it. But I guess that's what makes me a boomer. Alright, Nintendo Direct. Did you watch the Nintendo Direct? Because I know you showed up and had to go get dog cat food. And you disappeared. For me, the Nintendo Direct... A lot of people hate this Nintendo Direct. I have seen multiple people call this Nintendo Direct. Technically, it was still a Direct. It's still called a Direct. I've seen multiple people say this Nintendo Direct, this partner showcase, is the worst Nintendo Direct of all time. People really fucking hated this thing. And here's the thing, I don't entirely blame them. We'll talk about it at the end. I understand where the reaction is coming from. I'm admittedly a little biased, you know, I'm admittedly a big Bethesda fan. So when we get all of these Bethesda announcements, I'm like, oh, cool, you know, more Bethesda stuff. But also, when you look at all the announcements made... there were a few new things, but a lot of it is just, you know, ports from other systems. There were actual very few new things. But also, you know, we live in 2026. Money's tight for a lot of people. Not everyone can afford multiple consoles. So some people only have a Nintendo Switch. And so getting, you know, ports of some of these games... Like, this is going to be the only place they play it, because that's the only system they have. But also, the people who only have Nintendo as a console don't watch the Directs. Like, I learned at a certain point, this was back in college, that even other people who are, you know, big Nintendo fans, they played esports Smash Bros. They didn't care about the Nintendo Directs. Like, sure, they'd get around to them and see the announcements. But, like, they didn't watch the Nintendo Directs live. They didn't care. Like, for as much as I, like, think highly of, like, oh, the Nintendo Direct, it's like Gamer Christmas. Outside of maybe E3, they didn't actually care. Which kind of surprises me. Again, these people are gamers. TM. I know, I usually use the TM despairingly. So, let's just say gamers. Yeah, because you didn't put my game out there. That's just a tiny input statement. I was born in the mystical year of 1990s. What year in the 1990s? It's not important. But in the 1990s. Back when things were strange and backwards. And the president was doing terrible things to women. Oh wait, that hasn't actually changed that much. Never mind. But yeah, no, I'm surprised. the boomer thing is, I'm not actually a boomer. I'm a millennial. But the boomer thing is a metaphor. You call someone it's the same, you know, you're a youngin', you use unk. I use boomer the same way you use unk. And I use youngin', which, again, makes me old. I'm not actually... The boomer is a metaphor. Yes, and I use boomer for emphasis to point out that I'm old. Yeah. And you know, not everyone's as terminally online as we are. Because that's another realization I've had. Is, especially when talking about these, like, Nintendo Directs. Like, you know, I stay up to date on gamer news, but a lot of people don't. And so, you know, I'm terminally online, and I want to know what new things are happening in the gaming sphere. But a lot of people will only see, like, a trailer or something, and not even think about it. You know, it's like people who only see trailers at movie theaters. Like, I don't know how those people exist. Especially in current year, where they only see a trailer at a movie theater. But, oh, plenty of them do exist. Oh, see, I just use boomer as like a... Boomer is, yes, an age classification. But it is also very much a mentality. It's this idea of, you know, you're not just... Yes, you are literally old. But also you're acting like it. Like, I call it my boomer take. Because it makes me sound like I'm, you know, 65. Even though I'm not. It gives off very much old man yells at clouds energy. Which is the boomer response. Is for they are old men who yell at clouds. It's a metaphor. Come on. You're in high school, you're taking English classes. You should know what those are. I know Texas, you know, I know we don't have the best education, but we don't have the worst either. So let's go over the Direct, shall we? So it started off with Orbitals. So Orbitals is a game... it's a haze-like, which I don't think anybody has coined the term haze-like, but let's just coin the term haze-like. Haze-like is a cooperative multiplayer game. It Takes Two, Split Fiction, A Way Out, all haze-like games, and I'm totally down for more developers. I want to disagree with you there, but I'm not going to. We're still not the bottom, though. But yeah, haze-like... I'm down for more developers making haze-like games. Where it's two-player, multiplayer game, you and a friend working together to beat the game. Joseph Fares is really good at it. You know, that's what his studio is known for. I would love Nintendo to take a crack at it. You know, they love making multiplayer Zelda games. Make a two-player multiplayer Zelda game like Split Fiction. I think that would be a lot of fun, and a lot of people would be down for that. Just a question of, will they? But no, Orbitals is a new haze-like co-op multiplayer game where you and a friend work together. I know what you meant. You and a friend work together to solve puzzles, and they show off different examples, like, oh, you know, certain players use different weapons, and depending on the weapon you use, that solves a different problem. And yeah, it's literally just Split Fiction or It Takes Two. Like, they very much feel similar, but that's not like a bad thing. Those games are fun. And I love the art style of Orbitals. It's a fantastic art style. So I'm totally on board with this game. Will I actually play it? No. But I think it's a good looking game. We did not get a release date, just a vague 2026. But, you know, something's better than nothing. It is Switch 2 exclusive. That is another thing. The only thing that would have made this announcement bigger is if it hadn't been revealed at, like, the Game Awards. Like, if this was our first time hearing about this game, this would have been a huge announcement. But because we already knew about it, that lessens the announcement a little bit. But it's still a good announcement. So with that, the Direct then broke into its first segment, which is Switch 1 games. So they specifically had a segment on games that are just being made for Switch 1. Which is kind of weird, like, to already know that your game isn't going to be playable on Switch 2, because there are not that many of those. I mean, yes, there are a few, but it's not that many. So yeah, to already know, hey, yeah, my game's not going to be on Switch 2. I mean, I guess, you know, Nintendo has been very picky with dev kits. Oh, fuck, I forgot to put that on the notes. Ah, shit. Yeah, I don't know, but you just reminded me of something I was going to put on my show notes. We do have one more thing to talk about. Fuck, I completely forgot. Alright, I'll get around to it. But yeah, so our first Switch 1 game that is only on Switch 1 is Paranorma Sight, The Mermaid's Curse. So this is like a detective mystery game where you're investigating this like mermaid legend, and it's a murder mystery, and it comes out in like 2 weeks. I don't know, I've never heard of this series, but hey, they're talking about it. One of the trends that a lot of people did notice with this Direct is there's a lot of anime games in this Direct. Oh wow, it's almost like Nintendo's a Japanese company. But no, that doesn't matter. People still get pissed off anyways. Like, yeah, we all know Nintendo's Japanese, but some people just don't care. The next game is another anime game, Captain Tsubasa 2 World Fighters. This is a soccer game. I'm assuming it's based off of like a soccer anime or manga. I would say the same thing, but trust me, people get very pissed off whenever Nintendo or PlayStation show off anime games. But yeah, Captain Tsubasa 2, based on like an anime or a manga. I don't know, I've never heard of it. It looks fine, actually. Like, you can use these like special attacking moves, and like one of them is like a giant dump truck, and I was like, oh, that's funny. But I don't know, I've never heard of this, I've got no attachment to the brand. But hey, it exists, and it's coming out, you know, sometime this year. And now, they didn't mention it, but in the Direct, there was one other Switch 1 game. Specifically later on when they did the arcade archives. The arcade archive for Rave Racer is also Switch 1 exclusive. So that's only coming to Switch 1. And that comes out February 26th. But yeah, they didn't mention it. They mentioned it later on Twitter, but I put it in the notes anyways, just in case. So that was all the Switch 1 stuff. They only had 3 Switch 1 games. Next up, they moved over to games coming to both Switch and Switch 2. Now, they did not specify which games are coming to Switch 1 and Switch 2. I'll tell you right now, about 6 of them are coming to Switch 1 and Switch 2. And then everything else in the presentation is just Switch 2. The 6 games coming to both Switch and Switch 2 are Kyoto Xanadu, Digimon Time Strangers, Super Bomberman Collection, Another Eden Begins, Scott Pilgrim EX, and Cold Set Begins. That's it. Those are the only games coming to Switch and Switch 2. Everything else we talk about is specifically Switch 2 exclusive, which they did not really do a good job at explaining. Like, technically they have those little, like, cards, but yeah, they did not do a good job at explaining that. So, we're going to talk about them in the order they happened in the Direct, but just be aware that yeah, it's only those 6 games. So the first one let's talk about is Tokyo Scramble. This game looks fucking awful. It's a game where, like, you're in Tokyo and there's like an earthquake and now you're trapped in underground Tokyo. But the earthquake unleashed these like dinosaur creatures called Xeno. And so it's a survival horror game where you can't fight back against the monsters. Instead, you have to like use traps to escape. And you have to make distractions and activate like fireworks and claw machines. And both gameplay-wise, it doesn't look great, but visually, it looks fucking bad as well. Like, this game does not look good. Just visually. And it comes out in like 5 days. It comes out February 11th. It is a Nintendo exclusive game. They only like briefly mention it, but it's only coming to Nintendo. The one interesting thing I found about this game is that it has multiplayer, but you're not playing as like 4 separate characters. Instead, each person controls a different aspect of the character. So like one person controls the movement, one person controls the camera, one person controls the ability to activate traps. Like that sounds like a nightmare. But I could see somebody making a very funny video out of that. Like, if PlayPal still existed, they would make a very funny video out of that. But no, this game does not look good. I was not impressed with it at all. But it exists. It is a thing that they are doing. So, yeah. Another game that I didn't think looked that good, but I found out that was actually the style, is Valheim. So Valheim, if you didn't hear about this back when it released, it was very popular for like 2 weeks. Valheim is a survival crafting game that I guess I've heard it is good. Like, I've heard it has good mechanics. It's got a lot of customization. Like, I've heard good things about Valheim. But I do not remember it looking like this. I guess the look is intentional. That, you know, in the same way people make like retro games that are meant to look like the NES or the Super Nintendo. You know, like people intentionally try to make games look like older games. Valheim is specifically designed to look like a PS2 game. So it's intentionally not using the most like cutting edge graphics. It's instead got a style that is, you know, supposed to be reminiscent of like the PS2. And I don't think that's a terrible idea. It's just not knowing that and, you know, just getting off Tokyo Scramble, I was like, oh wait, does this game actually look bad? But no, according to people that I've heard, no, the game actually just genuinely looks like that. But I've heard good things about Valheim. I don't know, I never played it, but I remember everybody talking about it when it came out. Next up, they showed off Hollow Knight on Nintendo Switch 2. They're getting in an update that, you know, improved visuals, improved frame rates, all that. And it was available today. So you can go right now and play the Hollow Knight update. It is a free update, so you do not have to pay for it. There is, however, an asterisk. This update was not exclusive to Nintendo Switch. This is not a bad thing, by the way. This is like a good update. At the same time they released it on the Switch 2 edition, they also released a patch for Xbox Series X and PS5 that also gives improved frame rates, you know, more solid visuals, all that jazz. Because I guess Hollow Knight was only a PS4 and an Xbox One game. It never came out on the Series X and the PS5. So yeah, they gave that version an update as well. And you know what? That's a good thing. I definitely think the game should have those updates on all systems. Again, good on Team Cherry for doing that. Where is that? I think it's up there. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, all the Hollow Knight stuff, fantastic. Did I just replay Hollow Knight last year? Yes. Am I considering playing it again? Also, yes. It's a very good game. It is easily worth your time. There you are. Next up, eFootball Kickoff. So I guess this is a spiritual successor to Pro Evolution Soccer. I've never played Pro Evolution Soccer, so I wouldn't know any better. But hey, this comes out later this year. Or in the summer. Next up, we got The Adventures of Elliot, the Millennium Tale. This is another one of those Square Enix HD 2D games, but with a terrible name. Like, you know, I made fun of Octopath Traveler in the past, and, you know, Triangle Strategy. I think Triangle Strategy, like Octopath Traveler, okay. Triangle Strategy is way worse. This game, you know, if those games have too broad of a title, this game has the opposite problem. This is like one of those, like, I was reincarnated at a vending machine in another world where I can activate my special one-hit kill ability on the first Tuesday of every month. Where it's like, you know, a trend in modern anime that love to use very specific titles. This definitely falls under that. I don't know, I've heard people who played the demo really liked it. It does look interesting enough. I know some people are sick of the HD 2D style. That basically anytime Square Enix makes a 2D game, they just use the HD 2D style. And people are kind of over it. But I've heard good things. And it did finally, I'm pretty sure it got a release date. I'm pretty sure we didn't know this. But it now has a release date of June 18th. Next up, we have the Bomberman Collection. So the Super Bomberman Collection contains Bombermans 1 through 5. And it was pointed out that Bomberman 3 never released in North America. It only ever released in Japan and Europe. Meanwhile, Bombermans 4 and 5 never released in both North America and Europe. So that was a Japan-only game. So these seem to be new translations. I've already heard some kind of mixed things. This game did release today, so people have already played it. I have heard some mixed things about it already. But hey, I'm always down for some of these older games getting ports. You know, games that never released outside of Japan. I mean, I was literally praising Nintendo the other week for releasing those 2 unreleased Virtual Boy games. So, like, it is nice some of this stuff is getting ports. Of course, that's not the only thing in this collection. It also has Bomberman 1 and 2, which were the original NES versions. Or, I guess they would be Famicom versions, because, again, I don't think these games were released outside of Japan. At least I would be surprised if they did. It's got a boss rush mode, and then it has game share compatibility. All nice, all nice. It came out today, and it came out on other systems as well. I think it was on Switch, I think it came out on PlayStation, probably came out on Xbox. I'd have to double check that, obviously. But they did announce that, hey, while it's digital today, they'll be doing a physical edition later in the year, specifically in August. I don't know, Bomberman is one of those things where it's like, yes, I'm happy Konami keeps making new Bomberman games. But also, they kind of seem to put, like, the most bare minimum effort into the games. We're just gonna end the day. We could go keep collecting Pikmin, but I just don't care. Do I see anything about... I guess I could just Google it. Bomberman. Yep, the Super Bomberman collection is at least on PS5. It's only 20 bucks as well. That's not terrible. Next up, we have Pragmata, yeah, let's do Pragmata. So in Pragmata, this is the new game by Capcom, new IP, even though a lot of people are joking that it's Mega Man. We're gonna do the Night Expedition and beat the game. And then we'll go back and we'll do the other 2 Night Expeditions. And I should probably go get some water, because I'm almost out. God, I'm going fast tonight. I'm going fast through the water. So yeah, this is a new game. I know people joke it's the new Mega Man. It's not, but I think it's a funny joke. So you play as a guy named Hugh, and you're partnered with this android named Diana. And you're going through like this lunar space colony. And there's the system AI is like trying to kill you. But, you know, Diana can hack the robots and, you know, make them vulnerable. I don't know. From people who have played the demo, I've heard the game is good. It's not amazing, but like a solid like 8 out of 10, a fun experience. I did hear from people who played the new Switch demo that the Switch demo isn't as good as like the PS4 or Xbox demo. Because the demo that released today also released on PlayStation and Xbox. And I guess the Switch version is the weakest version. And that does kind of suck, you know, that sucks to hear. But yeah, the main thing, we've seen a bunch of this game before. I feel like the big reason to put this trailer here was just to announce the demo. We did already know the release date was April 24th. And then they didn't talk about it during the Direct. But there is also an amiibo for this game. Yeah, the little girl, the android Diana, they made an amiibo of her. And I'm pretty sure it comes out on the same day. Capcom goes big on amiibo, I guess. You know, Nintendo keeps making them, but it seems like Capcom also just wants to do it. I mean, they're cheap figures. But to be fair, I don't expect to get that many more of them, because the Street Fighter amiibos did not sell well. Nobody bought the Street Fighter amiibos. So while, you know, these ones were probably already in production, I bet by this time next year we're not going to see anything more from Capcom. Because the amiibos have just gotten too expensive. And while I think they're decent quality minifigures, people don't view them, like, people don't view Good Smile figures and amiibo in the same category, even though amiibo are much closer related to that than they are like a Disney Infinity. They're closer to Funko Pops, if anything, but I think amiibos are much higher quality than Funko Pops. A company that also is about to go out of business, allegedly. Next up, they showed off Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So this is one of the few new things we got. Even though, again, it's just a port of a game we already knew about. They had not confirmed that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was coming to Switch 2. This was our first actual confirmation. Because Remake, the first game in the series, you know, the trilogy, hopefully just trilogy, for 7, just came out like last week. But no, we did get it. We have Final Fantasy VII. They talked about how, you know, it's going to have like a story-specific mode for people who just want to play the story of the game and don't actually care about the combat. Which, you know, more and more games are doing that nowadays. And then we got a release date of June 3rd. That's actually not that far away. I don't know if Rebirth is already out on Xbox. Because I want to say Xbox just got a new version as well. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to double check that. But I wonder, yeah, I didn't see any mention of Xbox this time, but you never know. Hey, we saved Olimar. Technically, we beat the game. You know, I could stop the speedrun timer right there. Fuck. Next up, while the credits play, we'll just keep going while the credits play. Turok Origins. So this is, a new Turok game. This was also a brand new announcement. As far as I'm aware, this had not been announced anywhere before. But honestly, it got, like, no hype or fanfare. People just don't care about Turok anymore. You know, shooting dinosaurs with guns, it's not as big of a, you know, it's like Jurassic Park. It's just not as big of a deal as it used to be. Nobody really cares. Yeah, it's a, you know, single player, multiplayer game where you can work with a team, play third person or first person, and it comes out fall sometime this year. I don't know, it didn't really do anything for me, but I was never a Turok fan. Next up is Kyoto Xanadu. So this game feels like it's doing a lot. It's like, okay, it starts off with the premise like, hey, it's this alternate history where this Xanadu labyrinth appeared. And so this academy in Kyoto was started to go down and find the end of the labyrinth and defeat all the monsters inside. Okay, super simple premise, totally understand it. And then you see gameplay, and it's like, oh wait, is this like a 2D Metroidvania? Because that's what it, you know, it's using that 2D style. It reminds me of like a Metroidvania or a Dead Cells. Or I guess maybe, what's the other one? The Messenger. Like, it reminds me of something like that, which normally games like these are just RPGs. So I was just expecting this to be another RPG. No, this has like 2D elements. However, the boss battles are in 3D. You see like these 3D boss battles where you're running around these open arenas. But then there are also social elements where, you know, you can raise your stats, go to school, make friends, presumably date people. You know, the persona aspect of the game. And that's all also done in like a sort of 3D environment. So I feel like this game's kind of all over the place. You know, it's doing a little... If it had just been like, you know, you get all the setup and then it's just a 2D Metroidvania. I mean, we don't really see that many... You know, most 2D Metroidvanias are Big-Headed Child and Scary World. Like the one that just came out, Mio, is Big-Headed Child and Scary World. So to be like, no, we're doing anime, we're going full on... Not vampire. Vampire what's... What was the spiritual successor to Castlevania Symphony of the Night? Vampire something? I don't know, I never actually played it. But I know about it. But no, this Kyoto Xanadu, I don't know what to think about it. Yes, it does have anime waifus. It comes out sometime later this year. That's all we got. Next up, I think this was the real Digimon Time Strangers is coming to Switch 2. In Switch, it's coming to both. It's got both on the Switch 2. It's got a quality mode, which, you know, is running at 4K, and it's got a performance mode, which, yeah, it looks, or quality mode looks better. Performance mode runs better. That's what I meant to say. Hey, when did you think a person dies? When a bullet from a pistol pierces his heart? No, when he's stricken from incurable disease? No, when he eats a deadly poisonous mushroom soup? No, a man dies when he is forgotten. Look, One Piece. That's inspired by an older quote, which I couldn't tell you who said it. But it's the idea that you die twice in life. The first time when you physically die, and the second time when your name is spoken for the last time. Paraphrasing, obviously. Yeah. Yeah, inspired. Hey, it's that fucker Louie. Hey, there, you want an anime waifu? There's your anime waifu. That fucker Louis. Hate that guy. Alright, what's next? More anime waifus. We got Grand Blue Fantasy Relink Endless Ragnarok. I'll be honest, the name Endless Ragnarok is like a great game. But, like, I love that name, Endless Ragnarok. It reminds me of, in the Judge Dredd comics, they have a thing called the Apocalypse Wars, which is such a great name, the Apocalypse Wars. But yeah, I know nothing about Grand Blue Fantasy. I know people really like them. I think they're like Warriors type games, like, you know, like Dynasty Warriors, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. It comes out July 9th. Monster Hunter Stories 3 got some new footage, and they announced a demo, which is available today, as well as the game. I'm pretty sure we already had a release date, but it comes out March 13th, so it comes out in about a month. Date everything and date my toaster. Yeah, I mean, I've played Date Everything. You can definitely do that. Yeah. She's a feisty Latina. I don't remember who the toilet paper was. The sink was annoying, though. His dog was cute, though. After that, they talked about Arcade Archives. I already talked about Rave Racer. And then they announced Console Archives. Console Archives is, you know, basically the games that Nintendo didn't want to or couldn't put on Nintendo Switch Online. Yeah. So you've got Doraemon, Sonic Wing Special, and then the last two they talked about were Cool Borders and Ninja Gaiden 2, which were both coming out today. So you can go play those right now. I do not recommend Ninja Gaiden 2. Ninja Gaiden 2 is fucking bullshit. All the NES Ninja Gaidens are bullshit. But is the toilet paper? I couldn't remember. But no, the Ninja Gaiden games suck. Like, yes, it is good that they're re-releasing, but I would never recommend playing them. They're a mess. Next up, we got Scott Pilgrim, the new Scott Pilgrim game, the beat 'em up, Scott Pilgrim EX. Comes out March 3rd. So, again, that's a date we already knew. There's some stuff. This is where we get the sizzle reel. I'm just going to skip over some of the stuff in the sizzle reel. Look, it only took us 9 hours. That's actually longer than I thought. Yeah. We got Reanimal. This is if you ever played Little Nightmares, this is the same developers who did Little Nightmares. And this game comes out in like a week. It comes out February 13th. Next up, Star Trek Voyagers Across the Unknown. This is basically, if you've ever played that Fallout Vault Shelter game, where, you know, you're building your own, like, custom vault, assigning villagers to different tasks, sending them out into the wasteland. This is basically the Star Trek equivalent of that. And I don't know, I was never a Star Trek fan, so I got no input on that whatsoever. Disney Dreamlight Valley is getting a Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So on March 25th, there's a special edition for Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah, I've heard people really do like that game. I've never played it myself, but I've heard it's good. Goat Simulator 3 is coming to Switch 2 on April 1st. You know, they have to pull some sort of joke in there. I don't know, I've played Goat Simulator 3. It is a perfectly good game. You know, lots of stuff to do. I've had a good time with it. So yeah, I mean, there are worse things you could play. And then they talked about Resident Evil Requiem. So this is the new Resident Evil game. It's releasing day and day on Switch. I'll give them that. I'll give Capcom that. Both Pragmata and Resident Evil are releasing on the same day on Switch as they do on other consoles. I hope this becomes a more frequent thing. That, you know, yes, the Switch is not, like, super powerful, the Switch 2, but it's better than the Switch 1, and as more third-party developers get on board, I do kind of hope that we start to see more of this. But then again, I don't know. Because why would you pick up Resident Evil on Switch 2 when you could just play it on, like, PlayStation or Xbox? Unless you only have a Switch 2. But yeah, but most of the stuff we already knew about the game. I mean, it comes out in a month. Or it comes out at the end of the month. April 27th. They talked about the modes, that the game's going to have a casual mode, a standard mode, modern, and a standard classic mode. I think the casual mode has aim assist, you know, just making the game more accessible. According to, I was listening to Blessing Adeoye Jr. talk about it, and supposedly it actually looks really good on Switch. Like, for the Switch 2 version, it looks surprisingly good. Like, Capcom clearly put all the effort into Resident Evil, and not so much into Pragmata. Alright, we'll do another, like, night expedition or two. We'll finish off Nintendo Direct, and then we'll talk about, you know, we'll move on to other stuff. Yeah. Of course, Resident Evil 7 and 8 are also releasing day and date on Switch 2, so you can play Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 all on the same day. I'm surprised they haven't announced 2 and 3, the 2 and 3 remake coming to Switch. I can see that happening at some point later this year, but nothing yet. I understand they don't want to put too many things out at once. They talked about the Switch 2 Pro controller for Resident Evil. We already knew about this as far as I'm aware. We knew that the Switch 2 was getting a Pro controller. I want to say this had been revealed, but what hadn't been revealed is they're doing amiibos as well. So we are getting Resident Evil amiibos that include Grace in Leon Kennedy. I personally do not think the amiibos look amazing. Like, because, you know, our Resident Evil goes for, like, a more realistic art style, the amiibos definitely struggle a little more on that aspect. Like, the Street Fighter ones I thought looked good. These ones, not so much. But, like, what are you gonna do? It's interesting that they're happening at all. They're releasing later this summer, and I guess they'll give you some, like, additional weapons in the game. I don't know. Again, the Street Fighter amiibos did not sell well. And I don't think we're gonna get that many more Capcom amiibos. And then, of course, the Direct ended off with a Bethesda segment. They announced Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition is coming to Switch, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and then The Elder Scrolls of Oblivion. No mention of Starfield, which allegedly Starfield's gonna have a big re-reveal soon, announce its big, like, 2.0 update, as well as the PS5 version. So if the rumors are to be believed, we'll probably get that, and then maybe they'll also announce that, hey, a Switch port is coming, just not yet. That's my prediction, though. So for Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition, this is just the version of Fallout 4 that released back in November. You know, and to coincide with the TV show, they released an updated version. It has all the DLC, as well as 150 Creation Club items that, you know, they're Creation Club items. I don't expect much from them. Graphically, I think it looks okay. Like, yeah, it's still Fallout 4. It's not amazing. But I don't think it's, like, the most ugly thing in the world. Like, I've seen some people say. It's Fallout 4 on Switch. I saw what Skyrim looked like on Switch, and I was fine with that. I see how this looks on Switch, and I'm fine with that. I know some people aren't, but, you know, you do you. We got a release date of February 24th. Okay, that's, you know, in like 2 weeks. Am I actually going to buy Fallout 4 again? I don't know. Probably not. Because I've already put about 100 hours into Fallout 4. But I'd be willing to do that again. You know, maybe this time I just say fuck the story. You know, like I said I was going to do last time. And then somehow still ended up with the Institute. Maybe I'll finally do the stupid, railroad. Fucking railroad, man. Like, I get what they were going for, it's just... Fallout 4 is a fucking mess when it comes to the story. The open world's, though, fun to explore. Next up, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Visually, I think it looks fine. I think it looks good. They did not talk about the DLC, which I'm assuming is also going to be there. You probably have to pay for it, but that makes sense. It got a release date of May 12th. And then later on Twitter, Bethesda confirmed that Indiana Jones will be fully on a game card. So this is not a game key card situation. They're putting the full game on a card. Fantastic. Love it. However, for both Fallout in the Elder Scrolls, those are not going to be game cards. They're also not going to be game key cards. They're instead just going to be digital codes in a box. That sucks. You know what? I understand people hate game key cards. That people, like, you know, Nintendo's attempt at transparency completely blew up in their face and everybody hates them for it. However, I still prefer game key cards over digital games in a box. Because, you know, I could, in theory, lend a game key card to a friend. I can trade it in at, like, a GameStop or whatever. Whereas a digital code is exactly that, a digital code. Why would I ever buy a digital code in a box? So, no, I would much rather have had a game key card, personally. Like, I understand, you know, we're mad at game key cards. Some of that is justified, obviously, but I'd take a game key card over this any day of the week. Yeah. Well, that's what the PC version's for. Never. The last Star Fox game was so bad that we're never going to get another one. And then finally, The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. Of course, this is the full remaster, all the expansions. It's also a digital code in a box, and we did not get a release date. They just said sometime 2026, probably after May, but we don't have anything more specific than that. This was the one I didn't see coming. I think we all kind of knew Fallout 4 was going to be here. We knew Indiana Jones had kind of been hinted at. We did not know Oblivion was going to be here. But once it was revealed, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I get that. And that was the Direct. My thoughts on the Direct? I don't think it's like the worst thing ever. I'd still probably put it at like a 5 out of 10. You know, it wasn't amazing, but it also wasn't the worst thing ever. Part of it is that I'm biased. I'm a Bethesda fan. So for me, ending it with a Bethesda game, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm fine with that. But I know a lot of people aren't Bethesda fans. Or for a lot of other people, you know, they have Xboxes and can just play these games or have already played these games on Xbox. And you know what? Fair complaint. Fair enough criticism. But I thought, you know, this was fine. Yes, there was some stuff that I expected to be here that I'm kind of surprised wasn't here. The biggest one is the Duskbloods. Or Elden Ring. If one of those had been there, if we had gotten like, hey, here's Elden Ring, it's coming out later this year, and then we'll have a deeper dive on the Duskblood sometime in the future. Would have made sense. I would have totally gotten that. Instead, we got neither of them. Which does kind of worry me about what state Elden Ring is in. No Expedition 33. It would have been cool, but it's not ready yet. Same thing with Metaphor ReFantasio. Like, I expect that at some point, but I guess just not yet. And then Starfield, same thing. I expect that at some point, but now that there's allegedly going to be a Starfield Direct sometime, soon-ish to re-reveal the game, I expect that then. Just some other quick thoughts, right? Well, I think the Direct is okay. A lot of people disagree with me. I saw someone give the argument that, partner Directs are only for people who only own a Switch. That, like, if your only gaming console is a Switch, that's why you watch a partner Direct. And I kind of get that mentality, because, like, if you only own a Switch, you just have to go watch this one 30-minute video, and it tells you everything coming to the console. I get that. That makes sense. But, a lot of people who only own a Switch aren't going to be watching the Directs. And I saw, for all these third-party games, Blessing Adeoye Jr. said, if Nintendo Switch 2 had no third-party games, it would make no difference to me. And you know what? I kind of agree with him. If Nintendo did no third-party games, I wouldn't be too upset. I'd have no issue, because I primarily play Nintendo for first-party. If they didn't do third-party, I wouldn't be mad. But yeah, I think people would feel better about this Direct if it had ended on a big note. If they had like, hey, here's our one last big thing, and it had been like a new reveal or something. Maybe it had been Expedition 33. That would have maybe ended the Direct on a good note. Maybe if they had ended with Duskbloods. But instead, Bethesda, yes, they're big, but they're not that big. So I get why people are a little disappointed. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Direct. I'm gonna go get some water real quick. I'll be right back. And we'll continue and we'll talk about the Steam Deck and everything else. We still got plenty of things. Guess we're going for 2 hours anyways. Kind of figured. Hey, Emmy, how you doing? Good now? Yeah, it should be. Hopefully. Alright, let me get this. Alright, here we are. We're back. Yeah, okay. Okay, what were we talking about before we left? So we had unlocked the Giant's Hearth. So we beat the game, and now we're doing the post-game stuff. We'll play for like another hour. We'll do a day or two, maybe a dungeon or two. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But let's move on, and let's talk about... Oh, let's talk about the Steam Machine. So, I don't know if you've been keeping up with... Oops. I don't know if you've been keeping up with things. But back in, like, December, November of last year, Valve announced all their new hardware. They announced a Steam Machine, a Steam Frame, which is like a VR headset, and a new Steam controller. And, you know, it all looks interesting. The Steam Machine has great potential. People love the Steam Deck. So them being like, Valve basically entering the hardware market as like, not a console, but think of like a low-end PC, slightly more affordable. That seems very interesting. And yeah, you know, depending on the price, maybe even I'd pick one up. Depending. But Valve put a statement out on their hardware blog this week that the Steam Machine is delayed, for lack of a better term. That, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but because of the AI bubble, a lot of companies are selling their RAM to AI companies to make, you know, more AI. And because of that, there's a bit of a RAM shortage, a memory shortage. And that's causing problems in the gaming industry. And this is on top of, like, Donald Trump's tariffs. And video game console prices are probably going to go up again. You know, Nintendo put out a statement, because they had a financial report this week, that like, yeah, you know, they're good for now, but later in the year, things might change. And that does suck. That does suck to hear that Nintendo Switch, which is already, you know, $450 is kind of a lot for some people. And that might be going up in price again. But they're not the only ones. Xbox is being hit, PlayStation is going to be hit, and Valve has already been hit. Like, they use the example of DRAM, right? DRAM has already, in just the past, like, few months, gone up by more than 500%. And RAM is usually, like, the cheap part of the computer. You know, when all the crypto bros were doing their shit and they were stealing graphics cards were already kind of expensive, but RAM is cheap. And now it isn't anymore, because of all the tech bros taking the RAM for their stupid AI machines that nobody wants. So yeah, this will be affecting the Steam Machine, the Steam Frame VR headset, and the Steam controller. That basically Valve is being forced to go back and revisit the pricing for all three devices, especially the Steam Machine. Like, the controller is less affected by this, but it is still affected. So they do plan on basically delaying the release of the Steam Machine by a couple of months. Because originally we were supposed to be getting it around now. Like, the thing was supposed to be releasing now. And we hadn't heard anything. But now they're going to be delaying it a couple months. They do claim that they still want to ship in the first half of the year. So they want to ship by June. But, you know, new prices are going to cause issues. Part shortages are going to cause issues. And all of that just means it's going to be more expensive. Now, the rumored price for the Steam Machine had been around $700 to $800. Which is, you know, that's expensive, but it's still like a low-end PC. Like, you can probably get an okay PC for around that price, maybe a little bit more expensive. But for, you know, a little, basically a PC console hybrid thing. $700, yeah, it is expensive, but it's not, like, super out of reasonability. I mean, I know I just said $450 for the Nintendo's expensive. This is a little different. But yeah, that $700 price point is not going to stick. I think the upper limit of this thing is $1,000. I don't think it will actually hit $1,000, but I would not at all be surprised if we get to that upper limit. You know, if Valve's like, okay, well, right now we're going 700. Because of these price changes, we're going to have to now go down up to 8, maybe 9. I think 9 is really a breaking point. And yeah, 1,000, it's possible, but I think that would be ridiculous. I think 900 would be crazy, but anything's possible. Truly, anything is possible. And yeah, that's just kind of where we are at with the Steam Machine. I don't know, I think the Steam Machine has a lot of potential. I am interested in the thing. Because yes, I have a Switch, too. I have a PS5. I have a Series S. I have a PC, but it's an old PC. It's not the best quality. It doesn't run games that well. So the idea of, you know, a Steam Machine that can basically fit the place of, like, a fourth console, that does interest me. I am genuinely, like, interested in that. But at $700, even at $700, that feels like a lot. Like, I mentioned this before. I saved up for, like, 2 years to buy a Switch 2. Admittedly, I more than doubled that money in the time. But I saved for a while. And I would basically have to start resaving now. And I probably wouldn't be able to get one for, like, another year. To be fair, I have been putting nebulous money aside anyways. Not for anything specific, but also not as much as, you know, I did for the Switch. But yeah, this sucks, you know. I think the Steam Machine has great potential. It's just a question of how will this all play out. And just when will the AI bubble burst? Because if the AI bubble bursts, I don't know if that will make things better or worse. Presumably it'll make things worse, because if the AI bubble bursts, Nvidia goes bankrupt. Admittedly, the government might bail them out, you know, too big to fail and all that jazz. But I could totally see the AI bubble bursting and completely fucking up everything. Like, there's no way the AI bubble bursts and things are good now. I don't know. Someone made I reposted it on TikTok. Someone made a really good TikTok that was like, oh, you know, RAM prices return to normal, but AI is deleted forever. And then the AI is Weird Al Yankovic. Man, that was fucking funny. Because it wasn't AI, it was Al. That was fucking funny, man. But no, I fucking hate AI. I've messed around. I messed around with ChatGPT around the same time everybody was. It's whatever. It's like everyone's forcing AI into everything. And not everything needs AI. AI doesn't improve shit. I mean, it can be useful. You know, I think of, like, the promise of AI being like, hey, this will do the boring things that I don't want to do, that then let me to do the creative things that I want to do. Sounds great. The problem is that's not how AI is being used. Instead, it's doing the exact opposite. AI is being used to do all the creative stuff I love, thus forcing me to do more of the boring stuff I don't. And that fucking sucks. But you know, we live in hell, so what else is new? Alright, I guess that takes us to WIBE. We got 3 book things. I know I mentioned at the top of the show that we had 2. I actually completely forgot one. So, yeah. I did completely forget one, but we'll talk about it anyways. Because, you know, last week we talked about Watchmen, and I did, in the week since then, I read Tom King's Rorschach miniseries, and so I did read that, and I do want to talk about that. But I kind of completely forgot to put it in the show notes. Instead, I just put the Bobiverse stuff. So we'll talk about those instead. And then the one video game I've been playing, Power Wash Sim, I'll talk about that briefly as well. So let's start off with the Bobiverse. So if you have never heard of the Bobiverse, this is a series of books. You know, they're supposed to be more lighthearted, more comedic. It's sci-fi. I was recommended these from Dungeon Crawler Carl. You know, okay, technically that's not true. I finally picked them up because I read Dungeon Crawler Carl. But I've actually been recommended these for a lot longer. They've kind of been on my radar for a while now, but I'd never actually read them until, you know, the people around the Carl sphere were like, you should probably check these out. These are also pretty good. But no, I've actually known about these books for longer. I even got the first one on Audible like years ago. So, just basic premise. I'm just going to summarize the first few chapters. When I say first few chapters, I probably mean like the first like 20. So basically the book starts off, there's this guy named Bob living in modern day. He, you know, software developer, tech guy, engineer. He sold his company recently and made a fuck ton of money. So as a result, he's been able to buy a bunch of things, you know, VIP tickets to Comic-Con, where he learns, you know, all this sci-fi stuff about like, hey, what if we actually like send probes to space? What about like self-replicating probes and, you know, near-Earth equations and whatnot? So he goes to this sci-fi convention in Vegas. And then after that, technically it starts, he goes to that second. The first thing he does is he goes to this place that is offering to cryogenically freeze your head. And then in the future, they'll thaw it out and like give you like a robot body. So that's one of the first things he does with all this money he makes. Then he goes to the convention. And then as he's leaving the convention, guess who shows up? Our good old pal Truck Coon. Truck Coon kills him. And yep, his head is cut off and put in the deep freezer. We then cut to, I want to say it's like 130 years in the future. It's something like that. I'll be honest, I wish it was longer. They only go 130-ish years. I wish they had added like an extra 200. I don't know. I think of the Fallout. Like in Fallout, we're like 300 years in the future at this point. Okay, not something like that. Okay, maybe not that far. At least 200. And at that point, it's kind of wild that in the Fallout universe, society hasn't started to being rebuilt. Because outside of like the NCR, there are no other stable factions in the Fallout universe. There are city-states, and you know, there's groups like Caesar's Legion, which control a bunch of area. But there aren't, like the New California Republic is like the only thing the Fallout universe has. And 250 years into the future, there should at least be a little more than that. But that's a whole other problem, right? This book is like, yeah, okay, they explain that in the future, you know, they found a way to, you know, do space travel. So that's part of the reason why everything's going on. When Bob's head is thawed, they don't actually, like, put his head on a robot, but instead make a download of his brain and basically turn him into, like, an AI. So, like, OG Bob is, like, dead. But instead, they've got new Bob, who we're just going to call Bob. And they're training him to do, like, menial jobs, and they say, like, drive a garbage truck. Of course, Bob eventually figures out that no, they're not training him to drive a garbage truck, but instead control von Neumann probes that are going to space. Basically self-replicating probes that can use 3D printers and go out and colonize other planets. Because, you know, 130 years into the future, humanity is killing Earth. You find out that in the future, you know, the United States no longer exists because in 2035, we elect like this super religious Jesus guy who basically burns the Constitution, saying that God gives him the power to do whatever he wants. And people hate this guy so much that America elects its only atheist president, which is so unpopular that it leads to the Civil War II. And then in the aftermath of Civil War II, the religious nut jobs end up winning. And now they control the new country, which they call FAITH. It's an acronym. I admittedly do not remember what the acronym stands for. That was like 2 whole books ago. So now, you know, Bob, basically FAITH said that people who, you know, had their head frozen are no longer considered human because they no longer have souls. And so, like, yeah, they don't want Bob to do his thing, but also they need to go to space, so they gotta use Bob, as well as, like, other test subjects. So they're training Bob to go to space. You know, shit happens. Bob, as it turns out, like, of the people they unfreeze and turn into AIs, like, half of them go crazy. Okay, like, 99% of them. But they end up, like, they're training a few. Bob is one of the only successful ones, and there's like a terrorist attack, some people die, and eventually it's like, okay, some of the higher-ups in FAITH want to kill Bob, and eventually they're like, we're just going to send you to space. We're going to launch everything, you'll be on your own, you'll have to figure it out. The Brazilians are going to try to, you know, the Brazilians are currently launching missiles at us. Good luck. So they send Bob off into space. He goes to this first planet. Oh, God, I don't remember. I know they call the planet Ragnarok. At least I think they call the planet Ragnarok. So we're just going to call it Ragnarok. He goes there. Turns out there was a Brazilian soldier, like a Brazilian spaceship right behind him. He has to fight the Brazilian spaceship. He defeats it. But as it's like being defeated, the Brazilian is like, I'm not the only one. I want to say that the guy, it's not Maduro, but it's something like that. And he's like, hey, there are others of me sent out to space. You know, I may not be back, but another version of me will also come back. You know, basically like an evil Bob. So they defeat him, and then Bob starts making clones of himself. You know, the book is We Are Legion, We Are Bob. So there is literally a legion of Bobs. And so we get the first few, we have Prime Bob, OG Bob, who, like, you could argue isn't even Prime Bob. Like, you know, the original Bob died. At one point, one of the terrorist attacks destroys one of the Bobs. Because it's kind of like, if you ever watched Genlock back in the day, which you probably haven't, they make a point in Genlock about how, you know, they can just clone a human mind. But just because they can doesn't mean they should. Yeah, this book doesn't care about that. They're cloning people all the time. So we get the first, so Bob makes like 4 clones of himself. So you've got OG Bob, you've got the second Bob who goes by Riker, because luckily they're not all called Bob, they each pick their own name. Yeah, so Bob number 2, obviously named after Star Trek, is Riker. Bob number 3 is, I want to say, Milo? Or is Bob, who's Bob number, fuck. Bob number 3 is Bill. Bob number 4 is Milo. And Bob number 5 is Mario. And yes, one's named after Star Trek. You know, one is named after Super Mario. One of the later ones is named Homer. There's a Homer, there's a Bart. There's a Calvin. I can't remember if there's a Calvin in Hobbs or if there's just a Hobbs. There's a Dopey, a Sneezy, a Hungry. You know, they're all pop culture references. I think there's a Mulder and a Scully. Because, you know, Bob was a nerd. So we get to see Bob, and, you know, he starts colonizing planets. So, like, main Bob goes out to find a new planet. Bill stays at Ragnarok and tries to terraform it. Milo goes off to find another planet. Riker goes back to Earth to see if there's any survivors, because eventually they detect that like nukes went off, so they want to see like, are there any human left? Like, should we be like colonizing these planets? And then Mario just kind of fucks off. One of the things I do like about these books is that on top of them all getting each different names, each Bob clone is like a different aspect of Bob's personality. So like, you know, OG Bob is OG Bob more or less. You know, they don't know if he's any different than original Bob. But then you see like Mario. Mario is more secluded. You know, he's much more of a loner. And that's why he's not in like 90% of the first book. Riker is more, you know, I don't want to say charismatic, but you know, he's trying to be more of the leader. Riker eventually makes a clone of himself, Homer. And Homer is the more comedic aspect of Bob's personality. So like each Bob is a different emphasis on Bob's personality. In the first or second book, there's a Bob named Arthur who is a pessimist. You know, he's a nihilist. And there's just a bunch of different Bobs. Each of them have their own thoughts and desires. You know, they start off being clones. And then you have the clones making clones. I did start to think like, oh, you know how when you photocopy a photocopy, like over time, it'll like start to deteriorate. I did start to wonder that with the Bobs. Like in later books, are they going to keep deteriorating until, you know, all the Bobs are kind of fucked? But I'm only 2 books in, and I haven't even finished the second one. But yeah, that's your basic setup to the book. Again, that's like the first... that might even be the first, like, half of the book. So, I guess full spoilers from here. We go off, we follow each of the different Bobs. Riker goes back to Earth, finds out there are survivors, and him and Homer start working on a plan to evacuate the survivors, to get them off Earth into one of the new planets. Milo finds a new planet that they can go and inhabit. He calls them... They're both named after because they go to the Star Trek planet, you know, the one where the Vulcans are from. And so he names them after the Vulcan homeworlds, because there's 2 of them. So Milo does that, he makes a few clones, and then he goes off to a different planet. But then at the next planet he goes to, he runs back into Maduro, or whatever the guy's name was, Martinez, and he ends up dying. So Milo dies. At some point, right, so all the Bobs are like slowly sending messages to each other, but eventually they figure out, you know, faster than light communication, so that way they can all talk at the same time. Because the first book takes place over the course of like 30 to 40 years. Because while the Bobs experience, you know, time, they still have to worry about like speed of light travel. So going from, you know, Earth to Ragnarok, the first planet they go to, takes like 11 years. Sure, Bob only feels it's like 4 years, but for everybody else, it feels like, you know, it's been 11 years on Earth. By the time Riker gets back to Earth, it's been almost 30 years. But yeah, so Milo dies, Bob number 3 or 4. Bill makes some clones and starts, you know, he has this plan to like crash meteors into planets, because eventually when they get back to Earth, they find out that the Brazilians took meteors from the Kuiper Belt and have been crashing them into Earth instead of like using nuclear bombs. So they steal that technology. Bob, like Prime Bob, finds life. He makes first contact on a planet that I think eventually gets called Eden. And there's one of the, like, life forms. They're, like, pig bat creatures. And while originally they're doing the Star Trek directive of don't interfere, eventually they do start interfering, because these bat-like creatures, who I don't remember if they give an actual name to, are on the verge of extinction. And they eventually save them. Bob starts getting worshipped as a god, which he doesn't want. They befriend one named Archimedes, who is, like, smarter than the rest. So yeah, you have all those different plots going on. And, you know, there's all these problems on Earth with getting people evacuated. They keep making more and more clones. Eventually, after Milo dies, they send a few more clones to go kill Maduro. And at least in the first book, it's like, okay, they were successfully able to kill Maduro. Or whatever his name is. And so at least they got that taken care of. But then, near the end of the book, we cut to Mario. Who, again, he gets created, he goes off on his own to a very faraway planet, so we don't hear about him for a while. And then he finally shows back up, and he makes second contact, because he ends up finding a planet that has more or less been glassed. Like, basically, they took this planet and stripped it of all of its metal. So it's gone, and eventually Mario finds another planet that's been glassed, and eventually he finds out that there's this giant, like, armada going around, and basically, the Bobs aren't the only one in space. So that's why they save Mario stuff for, like, the very end, because, that's our hook for the next book, is that, hey, there are the others, as they call them in the second one. There's a few other things that happen. They eventually do get people off Earth. Riker finds out that original Bob, Bob that died back in current year, his sister had kids, and those kids had kids, and those kids had kids. So basically they have, like, a great, great, great niece. And Riker starts communicating with them. The faith-based government is still around. But they hate him. The Australian, New Zealand government really fucking hates him. Riker is working with, like, the United, like, the European Asian Alliance or something like that. And yeah, it's just all their struggles of, like, getting space started. Part of it is Bill specifically is, like, trying to hold on to their, like, humanity. So they start, like, playing baseball. They start, like, a baseball league. Just to, do these little things. Because they're alone in the computer. And, they're immortal. But they still, like, feel time. And all these other AIs go crazy. I can't remember if it's in this book or if it's in the second one. They eventually meet a third AI. Because there's the Bobs, the Maduros, and then there's a third one named Henry, who was an Australian AI, and he went crazy. He was locked alone in his ship for 20 plus years, and yeah, he started to lose his mind. So they eventually meet him, and they befriend him. And so yeah, book one, they kind of, like, I don't feel like there's any, like, climactic battle at the end of book one. It's like, oh, the ships are launching, everything's working out more or less, and that's where book one ends. We've got this looming threat of the others, who are this more advanced alien species, looming off in the distance. Book 2 is For We Are Many. And this, picks up exactly where we left off. I want to say the planet... Did they just call the planet Vulcan? Basically, Riker and some of his clones, specifically one named Howard. What's the general's name? I think the general's name is Butterfield. Basically, the first colony ship arrives on this new planet... And, General Butterfield and this new one of the clones of Riker, Howard, they end up setting up shop on... Again, I think they just call the planet Vulcan. And they end up... Howard starts making beer and, whiskey because Butterfield likes that stuff. And so he's down for it. Of course, the religious people fucking hate it because they're all religious pricks. But they go off into space. They find another planet that I think they named, like, Pandora or something. And it's a water planet. It's all made of water. Meanwhile, Mario and his clones find the others. The others have a Death Star they have like this giant gamma weapon that just shoots a gamma burst and it kills one of the Bobs instantly. But, you know, it's a Death Star, so it takes time to charge, so they're working on that. They eventually find the other's home planet. And one of the first, as I was reading through the first book, I was like, how long until we get a Dyson Sphere? Because I love myself a good Dyson Sphere, man. Solar Punk all the way. Put the punk in Solar Punk. So I was waiting for that Dyson Sphere. And sure enough, when they find the other's home planet, which is, I want to say, like, entirely made of metal. And the others have, like, these, like, ant-like creatures that are basically, like, they like, eat metal. But when they find the other's home planet, they're turning their sun into a Dyson Sphere. And I was like, fuck yeah, Dyson Sphere, man. But, of course, Mario's clones are, like, hungry, sleepy, you know, they're the dwarves. And they all die, or at least one of them dies. They eventually go back to where they found the Maduro one, and when they get back there, turns out Maduro isn't dead. So, right, even though they think they get rid of him in the first book, nope, he's still around, he's still kicking out there, and they're gonna have to deal with him. So that, you know, that's kind of where I was at with that part of the story, is like they had just found out Maduro's still alive. Howard falls in love. Howard falls in love with this doctor who's helping him make beer. But, you know, she's human. He's a computer. And while he, you know, plays around with the idea of turning her into a computer like him, instead she ends up getting married, and it kind of breaks Howard's heart, and so he ends up running away. Like, I get it. I do get it. Because some of the Bobs do deal with the loneliness of their, you know, immortality. OG Bob, meanwhile, you know, he's helping out the... God, what are they called? Not the Denisovans. The... Deltoids. They're called Deltoids. OG Bob helps out the Deltoids. Eventually, these, like, bat-like creature... Not bats. They're like... They can camouflage themselves. Griffins. They're griffins that can camouflage themselves. And they're basically killing all the Deltoids. So Bob... I want to say he, like, drops a meteor on them or something. And with that, the Deltoids are, like, afraid of Bob, so they banish him. And he mostly disappears... But, you know, he's still keeping an eye on them. He literally puts it as like, oh, you know, you're trying to kill my family. I'm not going to let you. I get that. I do. So after that, I know the last chapter I just read was the wedding, right? Where we see the doctor get married, and Howard is just kind of like there, and he's like, no, I gotta leave. But yeah, I think that's more or less the second book. I think the second book is shorter. Like, the first book was really short. I think it took me like a few hours. Second book is also pretty short, but I think it's even shorter. Like, these aren't Dungeon Crawler Carl, where, like, they're all, like, 12... You know, the shortest one was, like, 12 hours. No, the shortest one here is still, like, 5. Which is nice, you know, that's nice. But yeah, no, I've been enjoying them. I read almost the entire thing while playing... Or I listened to it, because I've been listening to them. While playing Power Wash Sim. So I've been putting a lot of time into Power Wash Simulator. But yeah, no, I would recommend these books. I will say that. I think these are good books. I've still got 3 left. And I'm excited to continue working on them. But it was one of those things where I read the first book in like 24 hours. I got like 50% of the way through the second one, also in a really short time. And then I just kind of stopped. I was like, okay, I need a break. I got to finish this comic that I also started around the same time. So I did that. And that was earlier today. I completely fucked this up. Oh my, everything that could go wrong just went wrong here. We just lost so many I mean, we still got more purples over there, but we just lost so many purples. I fucked that so bad. Yeah, we just basically... We lost just, like, 8 purples right there. At least. Fuck. Whatever. Whatever. We'll survive. But yeah, no. These are good books. I'm totally invested in them. Sci-fi hasn't... You know, Carl's doing a lot. And I kind of feel like for Dungeon Crawler Carl, I need, like, notes. I do not feel like I need notes in these books. Sure, I'm bad with names... But for the most part, I'm getting along fine. You know, the Bob... Sure, there's a lot of Bobs now. But I'm not too confused on all the different Bobs. Like, there's enough context. I liked in the first book how every chapter you knew, like, hey, this is, you know, Bill speaking. Or this is Bob Prime speaking. The second book's chapters are not labeled like that. And I kind of wish they were... But outside of that, I think it's fine. I think the reason the second one isn't labeled like that is because there's just so many more now. Oh god, and everything that happens with Homer. Oh my god. The Homer's whole... There was a moment where I was like, oh, something's wrong with Homer. Like, they're explaining, like, the donuts, which are, like, these farming things. And I was like, oh no, something's wrong. And sure enough, it was. And it did not end well. You know, it's going. We're doing this dungeon, which I don't remember the name of, but it's the Flan Dungeon. I love the Flan Dungeon. Yeah, no, this game is great. Yeah, so yeah, that's Bobiverse. I do recommend those books. They're good books. Again, so 2 in. I'm only 2 in and I haven't finished the second one, but so far I'm enjoying it. So the other big game I've been playing this week is Power Wash Sim. I'll be honest, I mentioned it earlier in this week. Also, the graphics, everything. Yeah, everything in this game is good. Earlier in the week, I mentioned that Power Wash Sim, I have bought on every console I haven't bought, but I have owned on every console I own. PlayStation gave it away for free. It was part of Xbox Game Pass, and now I own it on Switch. I'm not like a huge Power Wash Sim fan. I don't know why I own 3 copies of this game. Well, okay, technically I don't own the Xbox anymore. But yeah, I just keep buying Power Wash Sim. And you know what? I really like Power Wash Sim. It's one of those games where it's like you play it for hours and you don't realize like how much time you're wasting. But I definitely do feel like I am wasting time. But you know, I'm listening to an audiobook. And I got through an audiobook in like 24 hours. Because, yeah, it was only like 8 hours. And I just did it all power washing that stupid dinosaur slide. But no, it's good. My big change with this playthrough on Switch, and I'm playing it on OG Switch. I'm not playing Switch 2. I'm not playing Power Wash Sim 2. I'm just playing the OG. Is that I'm trying to use more liquids. No, this is just something casual I have. No, this is... I make little tweaks to it every now and then. You know, this was the Gen 1 model. This is Gen 2. This is Marble. But yeah, I make little tweaks every now and then. So I'll probably tweak it again in the future. But yeah, no, I'm not trying to go like full on, you know, Iron Mouse or anything like that. It's just a mode of expression. So, yeah, I'm trying to use more liquids in Power Wash Sim. because that's my, like, I know in the second one, they just give you unlimited liquids, which was definitely a good change to make. Because I always feel like, oh, liquids are such a limited resource. Like, yes, the car is made out of metal, but do I really want to waste my, like, 9 cans of metal cleaner on this one? I guess I should say soap instead of liquids. Like, do I really want to waste it? I ended up using the metals on the car because, it's the car. And I got to use them somewheres. But that's my big change with playing Power Wash Simulator for like the 3rd time. Even though, again, I could just go play it on PlayStation, I'm pretty sure I'm on Switch. I'm caught up to where I was on PlayStation. Because I didn't play it that much on PlayStation. I played it even less time on Xbox. I played it for like a few hours. I played it for a few more hours on PlayStation. And now starting over for a 3rd time, I'm pretty sure I'm caught up. It's just how much farther am I going to go? ALR, you have not got any plans to get a No. No, I don't. Nope, I'm perfectly happy with where I'm at. So yeah, but that's really been the only game I've been playing this week. Of course, we've been doing Animal Crossing. We've been doing Animal Crossing every day. We're down to the final 7 days. By this time next week, we will be doing the final episode of Animal Crossing. Which, it's about time. Not that I've hated the series. I'm glad we've been doing it. I've been having a really fun time playing Animal Crossing. But it's also very taxing. I'm very tired most nights. By the time we're done with Animal Crossing, oh my god, I usually just go to bed. But hey, I proved we can still do it. It was really vindicating listening to Venny Vinesauce talk about the new Tomodachi Life. Because I saw Venny did a reaction video to the new Tomodachi Life Direct. And I haven't watched Venny in years. I haven't. But I saw that and I was like, you know what? I'll watch this. I really like Tomodachi Life. And in that, he talks about doing another Tomodachi Life series for Living the Dream. And he's like, I'm 40 years old now. I can't do what I used to do. So while I'll do a few videos in Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, I'm not going to do another 50 episode series. And yeah, sure, I'm not 50. I'm barely 30. Whatever. But still, I feel vindicated. That, like, yes, doing big series takes a lot out of you. And trying to do it again, I can't. The original Animal Crossing, right place, the right time. I'm not at that right place or time anymore. I couldn't do it again. But for 30 days, I can make 30 days work. But I'm kind of ready to just kind of like, let's step back. It's coming at a good time. I'm glad because I did think for a second about extending it to 60. I'm really glad we got the hotel. Having the hotel now makes me feel a lot better about not extending the series. Because, now we can see some of the new content. And of course, just because I'm not doing the series doesn't mean I'm going to stop playing Animal Crossing. But I'm going to do some stuff online. I'm going to do it on my own time. And, not have to worry about things as much. Should be fine. So the last thing we got to talk about is Tom King's Rorschach miniseries. So, if you've read Watchmen, if you haven't, read Watchmen. It's not only one of the greatest comics, but it's one of the most important books ever written. Like, it makes a lot of lists, top, 100 most important books of all time. And I don't disagree. Having reread it, I literally spent the entire month of January slowly rereading Watchmen, and it's fantastic. Some of Alan Moore's other stuff doesn't hold up. Watchmen very much does. And while I did definitely think about reading V for Vendetta, which I've never actually read before, instead, I had been told that there are two good follows up to Watchmen: the HBO show and the Tom King miniseries. I've seen the HBO show. It is very good. I very much agree with it. But I had never read Tom King's miniseries, because I fucking hate Tom King. You know, he did Heroes in Crisis, and I've never forgiven him for that. But he did get off the shit list a few years ago. I did read Mr. Miracle last year, which I think we talked about on this show. And I liked Mr. Miracle. Yes, it's decompressed, but I thought that was fine. I enjoyed Mr. Miracle. So when it came to seeing his Watchmen series, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'll give this a try. It's, again, I've heard good things. And so I started reading it, and the setup is, it's 2020, but in the Watchmen universe. So, like, no COVID. Also, no 9/11, but, you know, that's a Tom King thing. I had heard about the 9/11 thing, and yep, I got to it. Yep, it's Tom King, all right. But, so it's 2020 in the Watchmen universe. Robert Redford has been president for like 16 years, which, okay, I do have a question about that, because they do, in the first book, in the original Watchmen, which takes place in 1985, they say that Robert Redford is going to run for president. You know, famous actor Robert Redford, who recently passed away. And so then it gets to 2020, and he's been president for 16 years. Does that mean that he only ran for president in 2000? Oh, it's custom. It's kind of custom. It's kind of it's complicated. Let's just say I did the rigging myself. Let's put it like that. The modeling, not so much. So yeah, it takes place in 2020. The Robert Redford stuff, let's just say I'm kind of confused about the time, but it doesn't matter. So in 2020, it's the presidential election, and Robert Redford's running for a 5th term against a guy named Tully. I do not remember Tully's first name. I just know it's Tully. And while Tully is doing a campaign rally, someone tries to assassinate him. Specifically 2 people. A girl dressed as a cowboy, who we later learn is named Laura, and a guy dressed as Rorschach. So the miniseries follows a detective trying to figure out why these 2 people tried to assassinate the future president. That's what the whole series is about. It's Tom King. It is slow, it's decompressed. Tom King loves Alan Moore, so he spends a lot of time doing that. And sometimes I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. This is really interesting. Other times I was like, okay, this is kind of slow. Yes, I am a little bit bored. And whereas like the decompressed storytelling in Mr. Miracle, I thought worked really well. It worked a little less, but I'd also think I would like it more if I ever read this book again. If I ever give this book another chance, now that I know what it's going for, I'd probably like it a little bit more. But with that being said, I did like it. I thought this was a good book. Specifically, once you get to the ending. I'm not going to spoil the ending. But, you know, throughout it, the detective slowly starts uncovering, you know, why did the assassins do this? We learn more about the kid, the girl, Laura, her upbringing. There's a point in this book, so having read Tom King's Mr. Miracle, in that book, there are characters that very clearly represent Jack Lee and Stan Kirby. Or Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Ugh, tongue twister. So, right, there's very clearly a character who's Stan Lee, and then there's also another character who's very clearly Jack Kirby. So in this book, I'm reading about, you know, the guy who, Meyerson? I think his name is Meyerson, who is the creator of The Citizen. He created this comic called Pontius Pilate, which was very popular. And then, right, Laura seeks him out because he created The Citizen, which is a very obvious parody of The Question. And the question is the comic character made by Charleston Comics who inspired Rorschach. And I was like, okay, obviously Meyerson is a stand-in for the person who created the question. The problem is I didn't know who created the question, and I didn't Google it either. At least not at first. But as I was reading, there was a scene that reminded me a lot of Frank Miller, and I was like, I know the question was not created by Frank Miller, but it reminded me of Frank Miller. And then at some point, Frank Miller just fucking shows up in the book anyways. So I was nice to have gotten that right. But as I'm reading it, at one point you get a scene with Meyerson, and it shows his most famous comic. And his most famous comic, I'm like, that's Spider-Man. That's just an alternate version of the Spider-Man cover. Meyerson is Steve Ditko, isn't he? And so I Googled it, and sure enough, the person who created the question is Steve Ditko, one of the co-creators of Spider-Man. Fuck. I knew it. I know enough about Tom King to know exactly where that was going. And sure enough, one of the things, I looked it up afterwards, one of the things that makes Tom King's, both Mr. Miracle in this book work, and is that, yeah, he's putting these comic people in them, but he's also kind of pointing out, like, where they succeeded, where they failed. For both the Watchmen show and this comic, part of the point is that, well, yes, you know, Zack Snyder in his movie glorified Rorschach as like this cool hero who, you know, is the only one who can see the truth. But Rorschach's a fucking loser. Like, rereading Watchmen, they constantly point out how much he smells, how much of an asshole he is. You know, at one point he says, like, oh, if you call the comedian a Nazi, you might as well call me a Nazi. And it's like, yeah, of course he's a fucking Nazi. Good. And so, reading this, it's like, what makes the Watchmen HBO show work and what makes this show work is that they make him a fucking loser. I've already got an artist. I'm good. I don't need that. I've already got somebody. What makes it work is that, yeah, Rorschach is a loser, and you can't be a Zack Snyder. The HBO show knew this, this book knows it. Because they very much point out that, yeah, Steve Ditko is just this old, sad loser who is, you know, Laura's taking advantage of him, but he's taking advantage of her because it gives him meaning. And yeah, admittedly, I watched Travel Beef, who is a TikToker, and I watched their stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, that was more or less what I was thinking, but now this actually, like, explains it in a way that makes sense. You know, learning more about Steve Ditko and how he's a utilitarian. I think that makes more sense. I do have a question for you, though, Emmy. Does this work? Like, when you go into other people's streams and, like, ask them, how often does this actually work? Because that's, you know, I get these people all the time. Does this actually work? Like, that's my question. We were talking about this earlier. Does this actually work? I'll give you penance. You stuck around a lot longer than most do. But does this actually work? Yeah, sure. Good response. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I ain't doing. Like I said, I have an artist. I don't need a new one. I pay them handsomely. Ah, fuck, it was too slow. Well, that's good. Stick to what you know. So, with the Watchmen series, with this Rorschach miniseries, I was like, you know what, this is... Well, yes, it had its slower moments. It started picking up steam near the end. And then I got to the end of the comic, the last, like, 2 issues. And it all just kind of clicked together of what was really going on. Like, they give one explanation, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting explanation. Okay, I see how all the pieces put together. And then they present the alternative. And I was like, oh, fuck. This is actually really good. And then it ends, and I was like, oh, shit. I really liked how the Rorschach miniseries ended. Tom King pulled off an ending. I was really impressed with that. I think he did a great job at the bitter end there. I was not expecting... Like, yes, the mystery was interesting. But once all the pieces come together, I think it pays off so well. I was really impressed with it. I get why people say, yeah, this is one of the good follow-ups to Watchmen. I get it now. That ending. And again, I think I'll like the rest of it more on a second read-through. Especially now that I understand the references a little bit more. I'll get it more. But yeah, I don't want to spoil the ending. It's really good. I was not expecting it. Okay, I was expecting half of it. I think part of why it works is, again, there's the whole scene in the book with 9/11, which is Tom King commenting on, you know, how he could have stopped 9/11 because, you know, he was in the CIA and all that. And that's very much, you know, Tom King, that's very much in his writing style. But it also kind of reminds me of, like, 9/11 conspiracy theories. Not the Bush did 9/11, but that Bush let 9/11 happen, specifically Cheney did, as an excuse for us to invade Iraq. Like, that's what it reminds me of. And I think that's very good and very well done. And yeah, I'd easily recommend this. If you like Watchmen, yeah, you will probably like this. There is a part of me that's like, this didn't need to be set in the Watchmen universe. Like, because of how it plays out, like, it kind of feels like it could be disconnected, but it's good that it's not. And it shows that, yes, if you're going to do a follow-up to Watchmen, it should be more about the themes and less about, you know, oh, well, let's just see what Dr. Manhattan's doing. Oh, is he creating a new universe with all the DC heroes in it? Oh, is there some sort of doomsday clock that they have to worry about? Is there a fucking button? Yeah, no, I don't want any of that shit as a follow-up to Watchmen. Or any of the other Watchmen follow-ups that I haven't read that just don't sound good. No, this in the HBO show are the kind of stuff I want, where you're following up on the thematics of it all. That's interesting. So yeah, I really enjoyed how this book ended. Like, yeah. And yeah, I'm not gonna reread it like I didn't immediately like finish it and like, oh, I should go reread it again. But I probably at some point I will check it out again, and I'll probably be even more positive on it. But the next thing I gotta do is watch the HBO series. It's only like 8 episodes. It's not that long. But yeah, I do kind of want to rewatch that now. Because it's also very good. But I gotta do Fallout, man. I gotta watch Fallout. I've heard the second season isn't as good. Specifically, like, the Lucy stuff is good. But, like, the Maximus stuff and the stuff with Lucy's brother just is, like, we don't actually care about Lucy's brother. So yeah, I have not watched it, but I'll get around to it. I also feel like the showrunner's decision to not pick an ending for New Vegas has seemingly really hurt the show. At least that's what I've been told. I'll get around to watching it, obviously. But I haven't yet. I don't really think I have anything else to watch at the moment, so I should be fine. I don't know, I don't watch much TV. I guess that takes us to the outro. Because we're gonna finish this dungeon, the day's gonna end, and we'll end. So, what else is coming up in the future? We've got 7 days of Animal Crossing. We're almost done. We'll finish that up with hopefully no issues. Because, you know, it's the final days of Animal Crossing. Our one big final goal is to, of course, flatten the island. Everything else is kind of like a, it happens when it happens sort of thing. But our big thing is we gotta flatten the island, which we started on today, and we will continue working on over the coming days. So that's the first most important thing. Other than that, I don't... oh, fuck, we should have checked the bingo today. I didn't even think about it. I completely forgot. We'll check the bingo tomorrow. I know the big thing with the bingo is we have to go get a bear villager. That is one of the bingo quests, is to get a bear villager. Doesn't matter which type of bear villager. We just need a bear villager. So I think we'll probably go do that in the coming days. Hopefully that'll be fine. Hopefully we won't have, like, terrible luck when it comes to getting a bear villager. Hopefully not. You never know, obviously. But I hope not. And then... I think that's more or less it. Like, that was the big thing, because we needed a villager to move away. We beat the game. Our storage is a real problem. I just buy too many clothes. I'm so used to having, like, 1,000 storage spaces. Okay, 3,000 storage spaces. That, like, not having enough, I'm like, okay, well, what about all this clothing I want? Even though I'm not wearing most of it. You know, I've got plans. I do have to start working on the finale. I have not touched the finale. You know, I always do some sort of finale thing. I have not even touched a finale thing. But I do want to do it. So I do plan on doing a finale thing, and I've got about a week to do it. So I will be working on that at some point in the coming days. Hopefully that ends fine. I know exactly... I have 2 ideas, admittedly. I have 2 ideas. I know which one I like more. And it's just a question of, you know, can I pull it off? I think I'll be fine. I don't know. One's a lot more complicated than the other. But I think it'll be okay. Anything else? We've probably got 2 Pikmin streams left. Because Giant's Hearth is going to take a while. But then after Giant's Hearth, we've got Primordial Thicket. And Primordial Thicket is both very long, but it also has Cavern for a King, which is the longest dungeon in the game, by, like, a sizable margin. Like, the longest dungeon pre-Cavern for a King is, like, I don't know, like, maybe 8 floors at most. And Cavern for a King is 20. Admittedly, Cavern for a King is mostly a boss rush, but it is still a very long boss rush. So it will for sure keep us busy. I was really hoping lighting all those torches would get rid of the ice. We're only doing that one at a time. Maybe we should... Okay. You know, with Emmy just a moment ago, you know, for a second I was like, I didn't think they were, because they were just kind of talking weird. And I was like, okay, whatever. But then at a certain point when they started asking, I was like, oh, you are, aren't you? But they played the long game. They were here for like an hour. They really did play the long game. I wonder how many... It's got to be like multiple groups, right? It's got to be like a collective. I don't know. I've never, like... I just looked up, like, Twitch artists, and yeah, it's just like, yeah, just ban them. You know, they just use AI tools. Yeah. I don't know. I've struggled with them for a while now. At least 2 years. I mean, since, like, Tears of the Kingdom. Whatever. Whatever, you know, I'm used to it by this point. I could just ban them, but once they disappear, they're gone forever. Most of the time. Alright, we got just a few minutes left. And yeah, we're already halfway through the area. Admittedly, we do have dungeons. Fucking test plight over there is a whole thing. Test range. I mean, we could go see if we can open up test range, but... that's a whole thing. Yeah, test range over here. Do I... No, I think we're... By the time they get back... No. Hey, that's basically us. Nope, we can't... I forgot about that. Okay, whatever. We'll do test range now. Test range sucks. But we'll do it next time. We'll worry about it then. We gotta deal with those frogs. And God, I gotta deal with the bloisters. Those things fucking suck as well. The capped guys, I don't... It's something bloister. I think it is. Alright, let's hit that. So yeah, this is where we're gonna end off. We'll be back... you know, we'll be back with Animal Crossing at some point tomorrow. My hope is to do it in the morning. We'll be back at some point. And we'll do that. Sunday, of course, will be morning turn-ups. I think we've got like 200k saved up. Which, I mean, it's our final week. We might as well just throw everything we've got in there. Sure, storage in the house sucks. And we are deeply struggling with that and could use the money. But we'll be fine. We also, Red should start showing up tomorrow at the campsite. So we'll have to add that to the routine. Because that is another one we do have to do. We do have to sell fake art. Yep, that's another bingo thing. So we'll get that done then. And then, yeah, it'll just be... You know, once it's done, we'll just be back to normal in chat. Probably we'll go back to Friday... You know, admittedly, we've been doing Friday the last 2 weeks. But I wanted to shift everything over to Saturday. But I think I'll keep everything on Fridays. Because next week we'll probably also... Because, you know, Saturday is Valentine's Day. So my plan is next week we will also do Friday. I don't know. Allegedly, there's going to be a PlayStation showcase next week. A State of Play. So, we'll see when we do. But with that... And no, I probably won't be live reacting to that one. I very rarely live react to PlayStation stuff. It's only Nintendo, and I can only get away with Nintendo because they go early. But that's where we're going to end off. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Till next time. Peace.